Maybe we should use Link. I know that's becoming Skype as well.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Have you actually played with Skype Business, the new version?
I haven't. No, I because I wasn't sure if it kind of sat alongside the normal Skype. If it upgraded it, then it would get because I'm on Office 365. So
yeah,
I decided to keep away in case I ended up breaking things.
Wise move.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've broken, as I said to Ian, I've broken enough things this week.
Right, well, I've sent the link out, so we can talk about breaking things. So, Jason, Gary, good evening. Welcome back.
Good evening. It's good to be back. Well, Jason was here last week, slightly.
No, I wasn't. No, I didn't make it at all, unfortunately. No, I was. I had an appointment at my school.
I haven't quite got through the whole of that program. I thought I heard at one point that you were going to join in later.
Yeah, I was going to try, but I didn't get back to it. It was gone.
Okay,
about 20.
So we both make it. I didn't actually get home to gone midnight in the end. So that was fun.
Oh, you've got a good excuse then.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi dead spot as well, so it didn't really help.
Yeah, and it was great to talk to Richard last week. So
yeah, I've heard about half the program, but it's really good stuff. So I want to catch up the rest of that, which is great.
Yeah,
I met him at Summit last year, and we had some really good conversations. So it was good to hear.
I ended up listening in two parts, part on a Friday, and then part two on Monday. But no, it was a brilliant show. He's a really good guest, so hopefully we can get him back on again.
Yeah, it just promised to be back on when you're around, Jason.
Yes, yeah. And like I say, I was really disappointed because I knew he'd be a great guest. So because I've followed his website, and he said, we've kind of had many a conversation on Twitter about one thing or another. So it would have been really nice to actually speak. So yeah, definitely next time.
Yeah. So since then, well, as we're recording, there was a new build of Windows released. 54 days.
Don't talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I think we can talk about that because we've all had our issues with that, seemingly.
It's what you get for being on the cutting edge.
yeah, exactly. So,
and to be fair, if we choose fast build, we are taking that with all the warnings and everything that comes with. So,
well, that's it exactly, isn't it? And we'll start with that. So, as we recorded last week, build 10041 was released on the fast ring. So, as you say, Gary, if you take that fast ring, you've got to take the risk that goes with it. So, but I think like many people, some people, if it worked on your machine, it was fine. It just installed and no problem. It's only when you ran into issues, then things started to sort of spiral out of control a little bit.
Yeah, your PC did not start correctly. That's what it says on my screen at the moment. I think I tweeted this out, but mine's stuck on did the updates, started going through it, and stuck on 57% for hours. In fact, for 2 days. and then said we cannot install rolling back. Which, okay, fine. It rolled back to the previous build, and that lasted for about an hour, and then it crashed, and then it wouldn't reboot again ever.
Oh.
And it basically just keeps coming up and saying it gets about 2 seconds into booting, and then the screen flashes all sorts of weird and wonderful colours and then reboots. But what's really weird is that I keep a separate hard drive plugged into my machine, which is actually not enabled for booting most of the time, and it's got a copy of Windows 8 on. And it's doing exactly the same thing as well now. So I don't know, maybe it's a hardware fault, but it's very coincidental.
Sounds like a graphics driver type.
Yeah, well, I've actually swapped the graphics card. So I've got 2 graphics cards I can play with as well. So I've got redundant hardware everywhere on this thing. So I basically swapped the whole machine out, and it still wouldn't boot. So there's something not quite right here at all.
Yeah, definitely sounds it. Yeah. You're making me more relieved that so far I've resisted the urge to put it onto my Surface. So,
I mean,
that is a wise move.
The good thing is I know I can do a clean install, and I'll install the software. The only thing is the one thing I'm going to lose out on there is I had Arcs off Total Media on there, and I'm not going to be able to reinstall that now. So
yes,
that's a pain. But other than that, I mean, you do take these risks, and I knew I was flying on the cutting edge, so I'm not upset. It's just a bit annoying.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
If only you still had a Windows home server.
Well, the backup wouldn't have worked then anyway. So.
No, I guess.
I mean, I have got a backup. I've got a backup of it, but that won't. I've restored that backup as well, and that still won't boot, which is really strange. So that's what's making me think it must be hardware of some sort. But I've basically swapped all the hardware. I've swapped. I've got a spare motherboard, so I've swapped the motherboard, processor, and everything. It's just
Yeah, it's the same PC I started out 20 years ago. Well, since then I've changed the inside, the motherboard, the processor, the case, the keyboard, the mouse, the monitor, and the cables.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's one I built for myself ages ago, but I built two of them at the time, so I've got basically exact clone of it. And if I swap the hard drive from one to the other, it still doesn't boot. So it's something to do, something on the software. And,
So have you got any machines working with it?
Nope. I've got. Actually, no, that's not so intentional. I've got a virtual machine running with it on. VM running on with it on, and had all the problems with Office and everything on it, with mail on it, so mail and calendar lapse.
So Jason, did you give it a try?
Yes, I updated desktop PC. It solved some problems and brought some new problems along with it. So originally I had a problem that for my kids that have got the family safety settings switched on, they couldn't get into the start menu or search, or which made it quite an interesting experience trying to use it. So I was quite pleased when the new build came out. So great, get that on there, and things will be back to normal. And yep, lo and behold, the start menu works, and they can use the search. And probably because Windows Family Safety doesn't work at all, it's like, I mean, I know we shouldn't be using it on a PC that you rely on, so I can't complain. But yeah, what's quite interesting, that it's just not working at all. There's no, and the time limits are imposed, or the web restrictions are imposed. It's just completely open.
Oh dear.
So, but I did note that it's interesting how they put out release notes about issues and whatnot, but I think Windows Family Safety is a kind of a forgotten thing that you'd think that's quite a critical issue.
I wonder if it's due for replacement with something new, and that's maybe why that seems to be the way that these things are going in this build.
Yeah, it certainly could be. I mean, I did try to post some feedback, but actually someone else had already beaten me to it, so I added my my +1 to it.
Yeah.
So I'm not the only one that's noticed.
Yeah. Well, I've got a few machines that were running Windows 10, and the virtual machine wouldn't install, and it seems to be since I think it was the 9926 build, doesn't work when Windows is behind a proxy server. It can't talk to Windows Update.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a Microsoft TMG Threat Management Gateway server at the office, so it's a Microsoft product, but even with the Microsoft TMG firewall client, it still can't talk to it. And I've done a search on the error message, and it appears to be that it can't talk to the Windows Update servers behind a firewall. So it did work at some point, and then it stopped working. So I think I've just given it with that one. My HP TouchSmart, the venerable old HP TouchSmart, I've got that upgraded. So the machine that started life running Windows Vista is now running the latest Windows 10, which is a testament to the quality of the HP device and how well Windows actually upgrade works, because none of them are clean installs. They've all been upgrades from the very first install of Vista. I think I may have done a Windows 7 wipe at some point, but I think I even kept some of the drivers around or whatever. So it's pretty good that what is it, 2007 machine will still work, with and it performs fine. It works quite well. And then the other machine I had is this HP Encore 8, which very strange error messages on that one. I know you probably saw my tweets on it that at first it didn't see the update. And there's a big long thread on the Microsoft Answers forum about not seeing the update, and it involved putting the registry key in, or not the registry key, sorry, the product key in again. From the ISO download site, put the key back in, and that actually then did the update. Although some people seems to have that it wasn't showing up, and now it is. So maybe Microsoft fixed that at some point. So anyway, I got it to accept the update. And then it would just, it would start to download it. It would come. I think it was the FBL Awesome or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would start to download it. It'd do sort of 0% downloading, and then it would just error out with this 0x8 or something 217 error. So I've got to memorize it by now. And a huge long thread on this Microsoft Answers. I think it was 24 pages as of today about this error. So it seems to be I wasn't the only one getting this error. And there's things like disable Defender, re-enable Defender, change from the fast to the slow ring, add a registry key, I've delete these temporary files from the Windows sort of update cache, and there's so many different threads and fixes I've seen there. So I tried it for ages on Saturday, messing about, trying with it, and I tried again on Sunday. And it was kind of each time out when I didn't get it working, I thought, well, it's okay. I can wait. I'll wait for the ISO when the slow ring update comes out. And I thought, no, I'll just give it one more try, and I don't be able to really leave it alone. Anyway, I thought, well, I'll just do an reinstall. So I mounted the ISO image. I still had it on the SD card that's in the Encore of the 9926 update. Or the 9926 ISO, the complete installation. Just mounted that, reinstalled it, and it just went through the install. Didn't remove anything, so it wasn't like a PC refresh or anything like that where it resets everything. It just seemed to go through the install. All the files, all the programs, everything stayed exactly as they were. Then went to Windows Update, and off it went. So an hour, sort of 2 hours later, the update was installed. So the key there is perseverance.
Yes.
And that's
grit determination. I will get there.
Yeah, it's one of those things you know it's not important, but this machine sat on my desk looking at me as if to say, "Come on, you're failing." It goes back to when my son's computer login wouldn't work over Christmas on Christmas Day when he couldn't get his live account, and he said, "Why don't you go to PC World and ask them?" And it's like, I can't be defeated. So anyway, so I got it working. So I've got it installed on there. It's not a huge amount of difference. It's nice. You can see the incremental improvements. I mean, Cortana's there now, which before you had to be in the US region for it to work. So you had to switch to US region. So now we can have this in there. I'll tell you one thing. If you've not got it on tablets, you wouldn't have noticed this. Now maybe the listeners see this. When you switch it on to unlock it, you can set the backdrop to be your lock screen backdrop. I think I've got the Windows Showcase one on, but you can set it to a picture. But it's not going to do it now because I've just piled this up before. But you kind of get the image on the lock screen, don't you? And
yeah.
And if you've used on Windows 8.1, Gary, you've probably used it on your tablet. You just tap the Windows key, don't you? And then you swipe up.
Yeah.
To unlock it, which is what it's just doing now. But what it does do, if the period of time where you've got to enter your PIN code again, or if you've set it in your settings, I think mine's like 10 minutes. You used to still be able to swipe up and then you enter your PIN code. But what it does on this build is it tells you to hold down the Windows key, and while holding down the Windows key, you have to press the power button at the same time.
What?
To unlock it. And it actually says that in text. I won't touch this machine. Maybe I can show it on the screen in 20 minutes or so. So it actually says written there, hold down the Windows key and press the power button to wait to unlock. So to unlock it, you've got to do that combination really, which is essentially, I guess, Control Alt Delete. I don't understand why. And on this Encore, it works 50% of the time.
What about the raft of tablets which didn't have a Windows key on them? Well,
that's a better question. I mean, I've got one with that, but that's not got Windows 10 on it. So I don't know. That's a very good question. So what you've got to do, you've got to hold the key down, the Windows key. You can feel it vibrate as you do it. It's got the haptic button, and then you tap the power button. But most of the time, it just turns it back off again because you've woken it with the Windows key, and then you've tapped the power button, and it switches back off again. And it takes ages to unlock this thing. It's a really strange system, and I don't think what was wrong with it before. There was nothing wrong with it before. You just wake it up with the Windows key, and it's not like that. You're preventing accidental waking so that the screen doesn't come on, because you can still actually get the screen to come on by just tapping the Windows key. It seems to me like it's forcing you to do a kind of Control Alt Delete, and whether that's some security feature that's going to be in future builds or something. I don't understand why that change has been put in it though.
Yeah, so sorry, JC, go ahead.
I was just going to say there was quite a few comments in the release notes, I think, wasn't there, around Control Alt Delete and lock screens and I think race conditions. So I wonder if that's put in there as a workaround.
It could well be, because I do remember them saying they put the chess piece icon on the screen, which I've got on mine. So whether that's part of it, I'm not quite sure. But I mean, I don't understand what was wrong with just tapping. I mean, like if I get this tablet out here, this Links one, you just tap the power button, and then you've got to swipe up, and then you can put the pin in. It's pretty straightforward. But on this other one, you can't do it. But maybe, like you said, it's some.
Well, I certainly hope so, because that'd be appalling if you had to do that. I think we'll put some feedback in on that one.
Yeah, I think I'll do it, and I'll show it in a minute. But it just works about, I don't know, 50% of the time to actually unlock it, and it's getting really annoying now. Because, especially with the tablet, the way I tend to use that with the Encore is you pick it up, you turn it on, you enter your pin, you go straight to the one thing you want to look at, TweetDeck or Tweetium or whatever you want to do, or check your email, and then you put it down again. And then it's not like I'm sat working on it all the time like you're on a Surface or a laptop. So you want that immediate access, otherwise you're going to pick up another device.
Yeah, exactly.
It's obviously your reward for persevering.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, what I've seen of this build, I can't really see any improvements I actually like in it, other than Cortana, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping, obviously, that the Spartan browser was going to be included, and that wasn't at the last moment. And I was also expecting that the start screen, the start menu would be resizable again. I know it's obviously you can do it, the full screen, but they did talk about the fact that being able to resize it was going to make a return. So I think for me, the biggest change is really just having access to Cortana, although it is interesting setting a reminder on my desktop PC to remind me when I get home to do something, given that it doesn't go anywhere. But one thing I do hope that's coming is that you'll be able to set a reminder on one device and it will sync across all your devices that run Cortana. I mean, that makes logical sense to me, I think. But yeah, I mean, apart from that, it just like you say, it's really just a few kind of stability improvements, but there certainly seems to be a few step backs as well.
I do like the new Wi-Fi. The little
Wi-Fi
menu.
Yeah. I guess that's quite good in that respect. But I mean, I'd like them to be a bit more explicit about what they're actually putting into these builds, because if we're going to give them feedback, it'd be nice to know what we're giving feedback on. I mean, they must have done a lot of stuff under the skin, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense how long they've been on this build.
Yeah, I mean, there's all the kind of quests, isn't there, in the Insider app? So whether or not that's supposed to surface what has changed. But I mean, I think I made the comment that it does seem worrying that as they're getting closer and closer to a potential summer launch, which could be as early as June in some ways. It's unlikely, I guess, but that they're struggling to get stable builds out. Even to the point there where they've said, look, we're going to become less strict and you're going to get buggier builds. Well, at some point these things have got to start getting stable.
And even I know people have asked for that transparent or translucent start screen, but I don't even like the look of that either. I think on a tablet it doesn't make sense. Maybe it's because I'm coming from a sort of Windows 8.1 where you've got the full screen start screen, and that's how I have it on the tablet, full screen. But it still looks a bit odd when you can see behind it, and it's not very clear, the writing. And whether these are things that they're just experimenting with to get the feedback and then they'll enable them in the build or not, I don't know. But I can see it perhaps on a desktop having the transparent start button, start screen. But I think when you're using it in full screen, it doesn't make as much sense.
Yeah, I'm hoping it all comes together on the night, as they say. I mean, I think we saw this a bit with Windows 7 with scope creep, and it came back a bit. But at the moment, I have to say, I actually like Windows 10 less than I did when it first came out.
Yeah, I think for tablet usage, I think they're really. It's so clear where their focus is. It's winning back desktop users, and it's definitely at the detriment to people like us that have got a Surface device that we use quite often in tablet mode. And I'm really, I guess I'm still keeping my fingers crossed that this is just that fit and finish will come towards the end of the development cycle. But as you say, it's only for us, as odd people that actually like Windows 8.1, it is quite a step back. But I think I think we are going to be the compromised this time. I think last time around it was the desktop users that were massively compromised, and I think this time I think we're going to be less compromised, but still, suffering in some ways from that step back.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think things for me is more that I think the actual desktop experience has gone backwards since we had the first build.
Yeah, see, I must admit I'm not using it enough. I still really want that stable build or that stability to start coming in, so I can put it on my Surface. Having it on the desktop that I don't use very often, I'm really just kind of getting a very kind of high level introduction to it. So it's I don't have that kind of real world usage, if you like.
Yeah, I tend to just be using just on the tablet anyway. So I'm looking at really the tablet experience, and the biggest problem, as we've already discussed, is Internet Explorer. The desktop version of Internet Explorer is not very touch friendly. But then an app like Tweetium is actually works quite well on it. When I think the previous build, it did have sort of issue. I don't think it's a problem with the app. I think it was a problem with just the build, that it would you would load the app and it would sort of quit straight away. But it seems to be better on this build, so I use that quite a bit on there, and that's fine. It's just it's Internet Explorer is the one thing that you don't want on here.
I think they I mean, like I say, I've really only dabbled, but my biggest gripe so far is how modern apps aren't opening in a window of sufficient size. It seems to me when I was playing around with getting the Mail app working, which you need to do with a PowerShell script, which I was right at home with that. But you open up the Mail app and it just doesn't open in a window that's of sufficient size to use it. And I think that's going to be a problem that needs to be solved. These modern apps, yes, they run in the desktop, but they're still designed to be bigger than your standard, Windows size. And either they need to open full screen by default, maximize, not full screen, maximize by default, or they just need to look at the size of the screen and certainly fill a good chunk of it.
And I suppose that's up to the app developer to set the default screen size, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you can.
I was going to say, yeah. But as far as when I did my Flickr app, I don't remember there being any desktop sizes because you weren't expected that. It didn't exist.
I just felt like every modern app I opened, every store app, the first thing I did was resize it, even to the point when you open up the store, it's just not, I've got a 24-inch monitor and it just opens up in this little tiny, almost 800 by 600 screen. Yeah. It's like, grab the corner of it, drag it to a usable size, and it just seems that that's just a waste of movement.
Yeah, but then I guess once you've done that once, it then remembers it.
It seems to, yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah, I'm getting the experience of continuing.
Actually, I don't even remember. I mean, in a traditional Windows format, you can set the heights, can't you, and the width, but I don't think you can do that on a.
Well, you might be able to on the new stuff. Obviously, the development kit's sort of out as of today, so we can start playing with that and have a look and see what some of the stuff is that you can do on that. But I mean, there's still an awful lot I like about Windows 10. I'm just frustrated. I guess it's always the way with development, actually, because you put new features in, always pushes you back, and you end up with things breaking which weren't broken before. It just feels like there's an awful lot of scope creep going on here with a very little time to go.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the moment, I've kind of got the feeling that I'm going to pretty much lock it into tablet mode, because that's the way I've been used to working with Windows 8.1, and even when I've got a keyboard attached, I can still see myself using it as locked in tablet mode and just switching to the desktop as and when I need to.
Yeah, I think you're right on maybe on something like the Surface, but when I think how I use my laptop at work, I never use the full screen stuff. I always I've got the desktop version of Internet Explorer, and I've got Outlook and Excel and Visual Studio and remote desktop and all that. But when I'm here on the Surface, even on the when I'm editing video or audio, it's always full screen. But then when I go back to my laptop, I have it in that sort of windowed approach. So I guess I think on that laptop, it would make sense having it in the sort of windowed mode. But maybe on the Surface and the Encore, then it makes it more sense to have it in tablet mode.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's really a case that, let's say worst case scenario, they've got 6 months to launch this if they're going to go for summer. and we haven't released Spartan out to the public. We haven't seen the new Outlook. We haven't seen the new Office apps. There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
and they're still putting features in.
Yeah, and then there's other apps that aren't core apps but are part of the experience that aren't perhaps developed necessarily by the Windows team, like say the Xbox app, which is even though it's not part of the core Windows experience, it is one of those things that users see when they first use the machine. The Pictures app is another example where they've got to make sure they're right as well, haven't they? Even if though they're not the operating system, they are one of the first things. A Pictures app and music and video and all these things are the first things that users use, and they've got to make sure they're up to speed as well, and got them out there.
Because I think it was Michael Gillett on Twitter. He mentioned to me that Spartan's a Win32 app. Is that right? Is it not a store app?
Well, like Gary, I would say, yeah, it's Win32 because it's a core part of the operating system.
Yeah, well, whatever it is. I mean, it might not be Win32, but I don't think it's a universal app.
No.
Got you. Because that strikes me as odd, because I would have thought that's the sort of thing that they would want to be able to update more frequently than the operating system. But I guess, Internet Explorer still gets updated separately, doesn't it? Albeit through Windows Update. But that's normally on a Patch Tuesday. Surely you'd want a more rapid release cycle than that.
It's possible that it's got a Windows Store front end, but the core, maybe the rendering engine is a Windows component.
Well, it depends on what UAP actually, the Universal platform actually allows us to do on that sort of thing. Can we call and DLLs unlike we could in the old version of the Universal app? So until I've looked at that a bit more, I wouldn't like to comment on whether that's actually possible. But it certainly would be a practical approach to it. To separate the user interface from the actual core.
Yeah, but I think it is a core component. So I think not unlike the sort of mail app or something like that, which is a proper app. I think it's a 30 C++ written. I think that's the only way to get that performance on something on a browser. Although you can write C++ for the store now, can't you? So.
You can, yeah. So there could be a store app on C++, possibly.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. I mean, there's been a lot of rumors floating about backwards and forwards on it, but certainly that would make sense. Talk about things which are actually part of the core and were apps. How do you see about OneDrive?
Yeah, I didn't think that was news. I thought that had already been mentioned a couple of months ago when the whole thing changed.
Well,
yes, I think you're right.
Because the modern app disappeared, didn't it? And that was explained that it was becoming part of the operating system.
Yeah, I mean, at the time there were still rumours that the modern app might come back, but that seems to have been totally stymied this week. So,
yeah, I mean, surely there has to be a touch-first interface to it, though.
Well, yeah, does there?
Because there's going to have to be on the phone, and if that's a universal app, then
but universal doesn't necessarily mean universal.
sometimes it's Paramount.
Yeah. Well, you could see a universal app just be written with a UI which only works on the mobile build.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I suppose it depends, doesn't it? I mean, you could argue that the Pictures application will be your touch-first interface to Pictures in OneDrive, and the Xbox Music app's going to be the one-touch interface to your music. But I guess it's just kind of documents.
Well, if it all integrates into File Explorer, if it's part of the file system, and you don't think about it, it just syncs into stuff like that, then you don't need to have an app.
Oh, just to give you some news on the updates, Gable's just tweeted there's 3 updates for Windows 10 build 141,000 or whatever, 10041 fixes transparent start screen and task view issues. There's 3 updates. So they are resolves a problem that may result in the transparent start screen and task view transparencies when snapping or dragging windows can cause desktop thumbnails to appear as black squares. I've not seen that one. The update resolves a problem that results in severe graphical artifacts on the screen when the magnifier is launched. I don't really use that magnifier. The update contains reliability improvements to common systems crashes. That's always a good one. There's fixes. Another update includes fixes for a black triangle for Link client on the Surface, Microsoft Surface Hub. Selected, I'm done. I mean, we haven't got a Surface Hub here, have we? So I don't have to worry about that.
I'm surprised they were even worried about that, to be honest, at this stage.
How many?
The best that you're saying, Ian, that it's bug fixes and speed improvements.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So there's 3 patches, and they're out today, so you'll be able to find those through the Windows update. There isn't one to fix Gary's problem, though.
I don't think my problem's fixable, actually.
and actually, there isn't one to fix the installer and the install issues that it particularly calls out anyway. So, and you wouldn't have this build anyway if you have got it. So I suppose they'd have to be for the older build. So there you go. So I'll include link to those in the show notes. I'll do a post at some point and get those up. I'll try my thing.
So come on then, with your 100% track record on predicting builds, when are we going to see a new Windows 10 for phones build?
Yeah, I think I better hedge my bets a bit because my predictions haven't been exactly spot on. The funny thing is, a couple of times I have had tips that they were coming.
Right.
So that's why I was so confident. But obviously I was wrong, and it just shows that they're not arbitrarily picking release candidates. They're doing what they can, and if there's an issue, they're not releasing it.
Yeah, I mean, it did seem to be a massive delay between them, and it does sound like they're going to aim to speed up those releases. But yeah, I think it'd be interesting when we get a new build for the phones, and then also, I guess the real indicator of stability is going to be how long it takes before we see a build on the slow ring, and even will it be the current build that we've got? It could potentially be even a different one.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't like to see this build on the slow ring. I think
this build's way too buggy to be on slow ring. Mm-hmm. But I mean, as I said, that's you do pay your money and take your choice. You don't pay your money, you don't pay anything, but you still take your choice. If you go on the fast ring, you're taking these risks, and that's fair enough. I'm just a little disappointed with what I've seen in this build, and it's probably because there's an awful lot of stuff going on behind the scenes which I don't know about. But doesn't seem to be surfacing very well to me. But maybe it's all enterprise stuff. You never know. There's a huge focus on this, obviously, on enterprise.
Yes.
And there's a lot of stuff you have to do to support enterprises. A lot of the management side of things, all that sort of stuff needs to be in there, and that stuff can take an awful lot of work.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing that I'm feeling is at the moment, and I'm sure we are getting to see these builds are much more earlier than we would have normally done, but I think we kind of I certainly got spoiled with the Windows 7 betas. They were so stable. I mean, I was using those day to day without any hesitation. But as I said, I certainly wouldn't be putting this on my Surface yet.
No.
Well, I think the thing I probably got a bit burnt by how stable the early Windows 10 builds were. Because they were incredibly stable. But I think that's because they were basically Windows 8 with a new desktop skin on it. And whereas this actually feels like we're actually getting a new operating system now, but it just seems to be an incredible rate of if they actually are aiming for summer. I mean, I would say we were probably at the state we were a year out on 7. At the moment, it seems. I know that they have improved the speed of actually doing things because they're cutting the testing down, but that's probably why we're getting so many bugs.
Yeah, I think ultimately this is going to either be a spectacular success or a spectacular failure, and I think, unfortunately for us, if it does fail, and I imagine the shutters are going to come down pretty quick.
Yeah. So got back to your question then. So for phone, what do you think? Well, obviously we're not going to see one this week. Well, I say obviously. I better not be too categorical. I doubt we'll see one this week. Maybe next week. I don't know.
I'm not expecting one soon. They've got an awful lot of work to do on phone before they release anything new, I suspect.
I wonder whether or not it might almost be kind of mid-April. I mean, they need to open up the audience. No, obviously we don't know at this point whether or not they're planning to have a similar ship date to the Windows 10 desktop version, or whether or not it'll have its own separate later release. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good 2-3 weeks out, I think.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah, I think we'll have another Windows 10 desktop build before we get another Windows 10.
I would have thought so.
I think that's probably a safe assumption.
I'm saying nothing.
I actually feel we'll probably get another desktop build within a week, but that's with no tips and nothing else. Just from the fact that they said they were going to try and get these builds out quicker. There's so many bugs in this one. I think they could probably turn a build around pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think the key for me will be to get Spartan. I think that's once that browser's included, then that'll be where on a tablet it'll start to get more useful. Interesting how they go with the naming as well, because they don't seem to have settled on a final name. I wonder whether the internal builds have got the final sort of release name in it already, or whether this is just, or whether they still haven't sort of included that in the build yet.
Yeah, I don't know, and I know we were certainly expect to see it, but yeah, who knows? I think I guess my kind of closing comment is in terms of build stability, which is kind of repeating what I've slightly said earlier. I think for me, the stability is going to be proven by how rapidly we see the releases to the slow ring. I think once we start seeing them on a regular cycle, then I think that's when the stability will be, perceivably much better.
But if you think, we know they're aiming for summer, and even if the latest is September, and if they get the previous was every 50 days, hopefully that's not going to be the case. Even if it's every month now, so we're going to get April, May, June, then you get into July and August. That's got to be release candidate time, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
it gives us potentially three beta builds before they get onto the next sort of the final ones.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, whether or not things are going to be different this time, who knows? But previously, when they've actually declared the thing released, it's been 2 to 3 months before it's actually in the shops. Now, we obviously got early access to it. I can't remember if it was just through the MSDN program last time, or whether or not they did enable the release update for others. I think it was just MSDN, wasn't it? But yeah, potentially they might, class it as done in towards the end of summer, but actually not release it to the public till the holidays.
Yep.
And just seeing
time to fix it and still meet their deadline.
Just seeing on Twitter, there are a couple of people saying that that this build is actually heading to the slow ring with the fixes that released today, which I suppose is one way of doing it.
Which basically means we need to stop doing predictions on this show.
If we're being pointed out as being wrong mid-sentence, yeah.
Well, does that actually make any sense? Particularly with the mail calendar problem, most of the people on slow ring aren't going to find that acceptable.
No, whether or not that's been resolved, but for me, actually, and I know, reiterating the fact that these shouldn't be being used in kind of production quotes users scenarios, but family safety is that's the big thing.
Yeah, should.
Yes, I just see Richard Hayes actually posted that it was from a tweet from Gabe All. It was saying that there'll be an ISO for 10041, and so if you're having issues, then that's how you can get it, and it'll be on the slow ring as well. So that build is coming to the slow ring, which is really strange. It's kind of strange because we waited 54 days on the fast ring, and then you get it a week later on the slow ring. So it's not much difference between the speeds, but if it does include the fixes from this week, so maybe the mail bit is, if they've included that fix in it, for example.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
If
they fix the major fixes, then I can actually understand pushing it out. I
wonder if there's a need to get out in a bigger audience. Maybe some people have kind of opted out onto the slow ring, and they're not getting sufficient kind of telemetry back. But
I can see Gable's tweet now. He says we'll be pushing out 10041 out to the slow ring today as well. We'll begin deploying within the hour, and then after that, he's including that, he's got the link to the 3 KBs that are going out with that. So it does look like that's the build on the slow ring. So hopefully it does include the fixes, but it's a bit of a it kind of defeats the object, unless the only thing I suppose what they could be doing is that will be on the slow ring now for a month, and then the fast ring will get a new build next week, and then now we're on that sort of level. Maybe that's the plan.
Yeah, have a kind of like a 7-day rolling cycle or something, if they can achieve that. But I've the thing that always pops into the back of my mind whenever with all this gay bowl on Twitter and all the general openness is I wonder what Steven Sinofsky thinks every day.
It is the exact opposite. I mean, that was total secrecy and then a massive long blog post.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even really the opposite, is it? I mean, this is more open than I've ever known Microsoft. Yeah. I know I haven't been on beta programs as long as you guys have as MVPs, but it does seem not just a U-turn, but a complete completely new territory.
It does. I certainly like that part of it. And I guess just going back on what I was saying, I guess even on the slow ring, you're taking those risks anyway. it's still a beta program.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're not signing up for that. Even the slow ring, that is not something that you put on your business critical machine, or your family members that's reliant on the machine. It is a test build.
Yeah, as a test, I think the reason I was snagging on it is because they basically said a few weeks ago that if you want a bit more stability, go to the slow ring.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
I guess they've got some patches, haven't they? So I think maybe they've hopefully ironed out. But you'd have thought they'd want to get the patches out for a bit and then see what the feedback is.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Those, as before I said that maybe those patches included, they probably won't be, will they? They'll just release that build and then it'll install those 3 patches after you've installed it. Or so I suppose they don't even have to release a separate image or fix anything. They can just include those patches. But maybe that mail, there's not specifically called out that mail thing, so maybe that still be an issue.
Yeah, and also there no mention of the fixes for the lock screen.
No, I wonder if I can get my lock screen to do this now. No, it's not doing it now. It's interesting that. It's just brought me the sign-in screen, which the pin still doesn't work. So I'm using the picture sign-in, but it's very strange that it actually. I'll screenshot it next time it comes on, but it's funny that this is just worked without it. So maybe you're right, Gary. Maybe they are testing something or putting some.
I think there's
something in there. Yeah.
I mean, from the release notes, it sounded like they're doing quite a bit of testing on that side of things. But even so, it does seem a very weird thing. Your Windows keep us power.
Yeah.
But never mind. I'm sure we can put some feedback in and say we don't like that.
Well, that's right. I mean, you've got your feedback in there, haven't you? So.
Did you see the news that the new rendering engine isn't going to be part of IE? Which I think was maybe the original plan. It's now purely going to be for the Spartan browser.
Yeah, I think they had some pushback from enterprises on that, sort of saying, "Well, if you put this thing, is it going to break all our internal stuff?"
I think I must have missed the discussion somewhere along the lines, because that was my assumption that Internet Explorer was going to stick with its traditional. I was going to say bug-ridden, but that's probably not fair. But with its traditional. It's traditional historical support for legacy systems, and that Spartan would contain the new slipstream and highly performant rendering engine. I hadn't expected any different, but clearly that was a plan.
Yeah, I think the plan was to include a new engine, which you can switch on in your Windows 10 build you've got now. You can switch the new rendering engine on. I think that it was to include it in IE, so effectively the difference mainly would be around the user interface, but they just seem to be leaving the older rendering engine for IE, which I think makes more sense. So that if you've got a compatibility issue, then that's then you can use IE. I just hope it doesn't. It means, well, I hope it means sites don't have to then try. It's another browser rather than it being testing for Firefox, Chrome, and Internet Explorer. You've now got to test for Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer, and Spartan.
Yes. It is quite a challenge.
Yeah. Although I think the new Spartan browser is supposed to be more like Chrome and Safari and anyway, isn't it? So
yeah, still makes me chuckle every time I go to the Twitter website on my phone. It says download the Android version.
yeah, so that's clever. I think that was a smart move by Microsoft, though. That to
Yes, yeah,
so you get the proper mobile version rather than some version that thinks you've got Internet Explorer 8 on there or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing quickly from me, we always talk about the app gap and whether or not it does or doesn't exist on Windows and Windows Phone, and how the gauge will be when you start to see advertisements with the Windows Store logo next to the Apple iTunes and the Google Play stores. Well, I happened to visit the here.com website, which obviously used to be, provides the mapping for Windows Phone and was retained by Nokia after the sale. And I got a lovely pop-up saying, why don't you download Android or iPhone apps? Didn't mention Windows Phone anywhere. So even when we have an app,
it doesn't mention it. Yeah,
it doesn't mention it. And I thought, just let's just hang up our gloves now.
Yeah, that's the age-old problem. Well, I'll tell you one thing though. I was out the other day, and I actually see more and more Windows phones out there. The low-cost ones. You do see a lot more people using them now. Maybe the 630 and 635. That you do see a lot of those out and about now. People using those. You don't tend to see like the 1520, but you do see the cheaper ones.
It's interesting because I was talking to someone I know who works for one of the bigger operators, and they were really excited about the 430 and 435. They think they're going to be absolutely huge.
I'll tell you what, I did that review of the 435 from Microsoft, and it's a great little phone.
Yeah. I mean, and particularly the 430 with its price range as well. I mean, that's going to be really, really cheap, and there's apparently there's a huge market as well. There's a big market for big phones, and there's a huge market for tiny phones as well. And they tend to be lower spec purchases anyway, because people who buy them tend not to be quite so technology interested. And it's quite an interesting divergence here. The bigger your phone, the more technical, the more early adopter you are, apparently. So it must be incredibly early.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But apparently, this guy who's done quite a lot of demographics and some things, and looking at the sort of the age groups and the big people who buy these things and when they buy them, and upgrades and things like that, and that does seem to be a common thing. And they're saying it's the bulk of the consumer bulk is in that period. That's low end small phone. So about 60 to 70% of the market's in there, and Android's got that absolutely sewn up at the moment. And particularly because even though the Lumias have been selling well in that area, they haven't had, other than since the 520, they haven't had a decent phone at that size, because people didn't really like the 530s apparently. I think because they didn't have was it one of the cameras? I can't remember which one it was, but something about them. But does the 435 have that? Ian? I can't remember.
Yeah, it has front and rear cameras. Yeah.
So I think that's going to make that really sell well. And they were genuinely thought that was going to be one of the biggest sellers this year.
But I think it's the retail price is £49, without contracts or anything. So I think you can get it up, really cheap now.
Yeah, I mean, he was saying that they were intending to buy more of that phone than they're going to buy iPhones this year. Which is quite an interesting statement.
I think I said my father-in-law got a Windows phone. I think it's a 630 he got. And without any prompting from me, he hadn't asked for my advice, my input. I think he'd asked my brother-in-law, who told him to get an Android phone. But no, he got a Windows phone. And when I asked him why, he said, well, because it cost me 40 quid. And he said, it's great. I really like it. So, that's just a simple choice for him. He had no preconceptions, wasn't interested in an iPhone, but, would have had his pick of cheap Android phones or cheap Windows phones. And that's what he went for, just purely on price.
Well, so one thing Microsoft can afford to do, which other people can't afford to do, they can afford to fight on price, because they're getting revenue from all the Android phones that are sold anyway.
Yeah.
And they effectively force the price of those up by having the licensing deals. and on their own phones, they don't have to pay licensing to themselves, so they've got that ability to do the £30, £40 phones.
And I think also with Windows Phone is a good experience. The whole argument about whether or not they should have 512 megabytes of RAM is leaving that out of the equation. But the actual performance and experience is the same across all the device types and all the processors. Whereas you do find, or from talking to people, that cheap Android phones do tend to perform quite certainly underpowered compared to the higher price siblings.
Yeah, and I think there was quite an interesting. Someone was doing a comparison between the Lumia spec and Android specs, and sort of saying to get the same spec on an Android phone, you're spending £150, £160 minimum to get and compared to a £40 phone. And interestingly enough, they're no longer using the 512 on the Lumia, are they? They're all 1 gig.
Yeah, the 435. I think that was 1 gig.
Yeah, I think they need to be. I mean, I think the Acer phone that's only got 512 megabytes. Which is a shame, I think.
Yeah.
And I think the only difference it seems to really make is the fact that some games don't like the 512, do they? And I think that's the biggest change, really. I mean, when I've got the 630, and the performance was pretty much the same as the 435. Maybe the 445 was slightly snappier, but with the extra memory, it means that all games will run on it rather than just some of them.
Yeah, no, there are app restrictions that some apps won't run on 512 megabyte phones.
Yeah, but no, I think that plan of the low cost ones is working. It's just whether it can gain enough momentum to catch on, and enough bank customers and Starbucks customers.
I mean, I think the States as we've said before, is a different market. Although that may change as well, because price is important. But I mean, you could certainly see if there was they're talking about 3-year churn at the moment on the low end phones. So that seems to be whereas the high end phones churn every year almost in terms of people renewing them. They reckon it's 3 to 4 years roughly. People turn over their low end phones, and there hasn't been a huge uptake on those phones over the last 3 years. So he was sort of predicting we're getting to that point where people will churn those phones, the older Android phones, and they tend to go on price more than anything else. So if you can get a decent phone, no matter what the operating system is, we could suddenly see a huge uptake on Windows Phone over the next year compared to what we previously had.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly see them more and more on the tube and on the train. It's almost becoming commonplace to see people with them.
Yeah, but they're always the low cost ones, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. Although I did see someone walking around with a Lumia 930 the other day, so in bright orange.
They're not different, easy to miss, are they?
No.
Yeah, I mean, and before we run out of time as well, we did talk about last week. Obviously, I talked to Richard about the Windows Hello and the sort of the different unlock features and things like that, and whether that's what the flagship Windows Phone has been waiting in the wings for. So we'll see a new Windows 10 phone launch with Windows 10 that's got the iris scan or the facial scan built into it. So that's your flagship phone with the security features built in. Otherwise, it'd
be very cool if they put the infrared scanner on that, wouldn't that?
Yeah,
that would be a real selling point over and above other phones.
Yeah. That's my guess, is that we'll migrate, and I'm so good with predictions. So yeah, that we'll see a flagship phone that supports Windows Hello.
Yeah. I read the blog post announcing the Windows Hello as the reason why I want a Surface Pro 4.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I was looking for the reason. There it was.
Yeah, that's it. Now, so we're almost running out of time.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about Xbox Music at all. OneDrive Music, rather.
Yeah. I mean, we mentioned this briefly last week. I've started experimenting with that. But have you got that working on yours? So Xbox Music, have you copied your music to OneDrive?
What you mean up with using my 256 kilobyte? Oh yes.
Yes, yeah, that's good. You've got one song up, have you now?
Absolutely, yes. I think the prediction is, will I have my music library uploaded before or after Windows 11 launches?
Yeah.
So no, but I am slightly disappointed. It'd be good to talk about this next week, because I'm a bit disappointed with. I think they could have done something unique in the marketplace. which I did actually email Brandon over at the Windows blog about, because he asked me for my feedback. So I did drop him an email explaining what I thought, what a missed opportunity I thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple what they're doing, isn't it? It's just basically, it's a folder and you can play it from Music app. Whether we'll see a new user interface to it or not, but I just tried a few songs and they seem to work. So it does get around that problem that you had though, with sort of songs disappearing because they're no longer licensed.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But I was just hoping to see a bit more crossover between the Xbox Music Pass and it.
Yeah.
I think I called it kind of automatic upscaling. But we can talk about this next week. Yeah.
So what else I briefly want to mention? Just one on the band. The band sensor monitor, now you can view your stats real time over the web, which is pretty cool. So I'm not really come up with a good use scenario for this yet, but I can see it being interesting that, so I've got my band and I could give you a key, and that is, I think it was a 6-digit code or something like that, and then you can view the stats from it. So I can imagine if you're monitoring somebody, maybe a child's health or something like that, and you could view it remotely. That's quite interesting, and that opens up the possibility for sort of managed services that maybe a real-time service that you have for maybe a sick relative or something like that. Maybe these are really early days yet, but that has got the potential. And it was using an Azure web service as well, so it's quite an interesting technical implementation as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's just through the band sensor monitor. I think that was one of the 79p apps or something like that. So I think it shows how much potential the band's got. And of course, since we last talked as well, the band is available for pre-order in the UK. So Gary, now is your chance. But you've got your Pebble now.
I've got a Pebble. I've got a Pebble time coming as well. So eventually,
you've no wrist space left.
I've got no wrist space left. Well, I can always use it. See, I can always use it as a strap for the Pebble, I guess.
Yeah. So there we go. So we're back on predictions, because I said it would be the next generation of hardware that launched out in more markets. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
we're really not doing very well.
No,
yeah, I've actually been asked to write an app for one, so I should definitely be getting one. So.
Well, yeah, and well, you know where I am if you want me to test it for you.
It's gonna be fun. But,
if Ian gets frustrated with your app, you'll be able to tell by monitoring his heart rate.
Yeah, exactly.
I tell you what's really interesting, actually, just to quick aside on this app. I've been asked to write this app, and I've been asked to write it for the Pebble, for the band, for Android Wear, but not for the Apple Watch, which is interesting.
Is that, to think, because it's the wrong market for the the Apple Watch is the wrong target market for your client, or?
Well, there is that. I think they think that they won't be buying any Apple Watches internally,
right?
But God, just thought it was an interesting sort of thing, because obviously most companies seem to be going the other way, but that does seem to be. It's just quite interesting.
I mean, the band is. I mean, I played with the SDK, and I think you'll see it, Gary. It's so easy to get started with it. It is a very nice little SDK. I mean, it's not got a huge amount of functionality, but it is certainly easy to get going with it. Right, and one of the things I did want a quick shout out is Media Browser.
Oh, it's not called that anymore, is it?
No, MB.
MB.
Yeah,
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I mean, like if you haven't worked it out, MB. Yeah. Media Browser. And I think they've done it for the very same reason that Kodi did their change. They want to own their brand rather than it being generic keywords, which is understandable. But it's going to take a bit getting used to. I'm still getting used to Kodi XBMC. I noticed if I put Kodi in the blog post title and I don't put XBMC, the traffic is lower because people are looking for XBMC. So they've still got work to do with it. But it's a great platform anyway. So anyway, we'll probably talk about that more next week. But MB server, and they've got cloud syncing as well, which looks quite nice. Right. Well, I think that's everything we've got time for this week. So, I did one other app I mentioned, Band Sensor, that measures your UV exposure so you don't get sunburn, or it'll tell you if you're going to get sunburn.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
That's a good
That
idea.
is, yeah. When I saw that, because we've got our two kids have got quite fair skin, so for that sort of thing, for them to be able to monitor, not so much now, but when they're older, that's a, one of those. And that's where I think the Apple Watch kind of misses the mark. They've gone for a traditional interface to apps, whereas the Band is just so much more than that.
What I really like about it is though that they're pushing this out to PC World, all the usual places in the UK.
Yeah.
So probably for the first time, this is going to get proper exposure in the UK, and it's got some really good reviews from Telegraph and other sort of mainstream press as well. So I think Microsoft got if they can get them in the stores and get people so they can see them, then I think they've got a success on their hands.
Yeah.
I would like to have seen a slightly lower price point, but I appreciate obviously this is it's got a lot of sensors, a lot of hardware in it. So
yeah, I mean, of course, it's because it's going into the main retailers. We'll probably get offers on them anyway. Over time. So
they can, and then everybody can go look at my video of the best third-party apps for the Microsoft Band, and see other videos on our YouTube channel as well as one of the Lumia 435. There's a desktop charging station, which is really good actually. I really like 3 2-amp ports and 3 1-amp ports on there, so you can charge iPads and things like that. And there's a review of the wireless charger for the Lumia as well, which works with the Nexus as well, so I quite like that as well. So, and I think I've got another Lumia on the way soon to review as well. So I think it's 735 probably to look at next. So go have a look at our YouTube channel. So where can we find you, Gary?
You can find me at Gary WMA on Twitter and at Fascinating Tech, and we're well on our way to getting the spring issue out now, and I've unfortunately had to return the 1.8 ton review unit, but that was very good, great fun while I had it.
And and I guess we've got Gadget Show in a couple of weeks' time, press day, so we get a lot of stuff there to talk about as well.
Yep, that's right. So I'm holding off getting that issue out until after we've been to Gadget Show in case there's anything exciting there.
And Jess, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Database Jace.
Did you say you had your post ready to go for your Surface thing?
I have, yeah. I just need to I need to get some screenshots, but I might just publish anyway and then do a separate post with the gallery.
I just remember you saying don't forget to change your posting date so that anybody can see it.
Jace lives a few years back. It's time traveler, really.
But no, I have got the post written up. So yeah, I just need to get some screenshots.
Excellent stuff. Well, it was great fun as ever. We shall have more to talk about 8 o'clock next Tuesday UK time in the chat room and the podcast and YouTube and everywhere else. So until then, we'll see you next week.
Take care.
Cheerio.